Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. We record these interviews so potential buyers have more information about the seller and the business to help them make a buying decision. Today we'll be talking about a display advertising business for sale, and I have the seller with me today. So welcome to the show, Sean, and how are you doing?
Oh, thanks a lot, Vinny. Doing pretty well, thanks.
Great to hear. Really looking forward to talking about your business. It's in the finance niche, which is a bit of a mystery to me after all these years of me trying to get into it. But just before we dive in, let me give a very brief summary of the listing for our listeners. So today's business is a display advertising business created in March 2008 in the finance niche. The average monthly revenue for the business is $25,118, and it makes an average of $25,018 per month in net profit. The assets included in the sale are the domain, including all of the site's contents and files, an additional beta site, codes for the sites and the cloud hosting accounts, an email list with 5,680 subscribers, an ad partner relationship, and social media accounts. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 54825 to learn more about the business. Or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So Sean, that's just a very general overview about your business, but can you share with me about your background in building or running online businesses?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm a web developer by trade, so I've been in the internet sort of web development industry for 15 years or so. In the last 3 or 4 years, I'd been at an agency helping startups to get their idea from idea to reality, whether that's an app or a website. So it's something that I've always been in touch with, really.
Gotcha. Okay, so it kind of sounds like your professional background was also in that ecosystem anyway, so that makes sense. Can you share with me, I guess, how you came up with the idea to start this affiliate business in particular?
Yes, it's a bit off profession for me, but like way back in 2008, I went to a stock trading seminar and just learned a little bit more about it. It was one of those free ones where they leave you wanting a little bit more and not having quite enough information, and rather than forking out what they wanted for the full thing, I went and did a little bit of research myself, and just being a programmer to develop a tool for myself to get a bit more of an understanding of things, because there wasn't anything out that met this specific need. And I stuck it online, polished it up and stuck it online, and sort of it's been gathering traffic ever since.
No, that definitely makes sense, Sean. So is this like the first ever online business you've created?
It's the first major one. Yeah, I've put up a few wacky ideas for websites in the past, but nothing too serious, yeah.
Makes sense. So you've scaled this to a really big size. People who are interested in getting started with online businesses, is there anything that you could share with them why display advertising is a great business model?
It gives you immediate reflection of the value that you're providing to people. If people aren't coming back or they're not spending long on the site, then you're not seeing money in your pocket. For me, I just focused on making a tool that was useful and getting decent repeat traffic. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you've built the site to its current size, and our listeners will be wondering, why are you selling the business instead of staying with it and growing it?
I'm tempted to keep it, to be honest. Like, it's interesting and it's pretty hands-off stuff. So that's an option for me. But I mean, I'm located in Australia, as you can hear from my crocodile hunter accent. And the main target audience of the site is in the US during the stock trading day. And it just means that all the stuff's happening overnight for me. If there's support requests, then it means I have to get to them in the morning, and the user will be waiting a little bit to get a response. In the past, like years ago, I've had some technical issues with the site. So waking up to see those issues is has caused a little bit of stress over the time, and I've sorted all of that out now. But yeah, look, and I've had it for over 12 years. It was an industry that I kind of fell into. Like, I've always kind of been interested in finance, but it's not a huge passion for me. So I think it might just be time to pass it on to someone. I think there's a lot of potential on the site, which I can get into a little bit later, but I don't know if I'm the right person as a sole developer owner to take it in that way.
That makes sense, yeah. Like you say, it kind of feels like you fell into this a bit, and you've done obviously really well to scale the business to where it is. And, we'll dive into a bit about your experience and like you said, the opportunities, so that whoever acquires the site, whoever you pass the baton on, can take it and really run with it. So yeah, let's just talk about your experience a bit. I mean, as you were building this site, like you said, over the past 12 plus years, was there anything that you learned that you'd apply to building future sites or businesses?
I think the one thing that I realized, I tell my friends that I've been lucky with it. In a way, I have been lucky, but also I think that luck has happened because I chose something where there was a need. I've hung around startup spaces over the past few years while sort of doing bits and pieces and working on the site as well. And I do see a lot of people who are trying to shoehorn ideas or are just sitting around a table trying to come up with ideas. And so finding where there is actually a need, and even like looking on forums, support forums, to see what are people's pain points. And maybe the tricky thing is it may not be an area that you have a lot of interest in or familiarity with, and maybe that's actually a reason not to pursue it, but doesn't mean that there's not an idea there or a need to be met in that. So getting an overlap of what you're interested in and finding where there's a need, I think that's important for someone who really wants to grow. I mean, maybe that's more startup advice, but yeah, that's been my reflections on the journey for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice there, because the temptation is to try and, like you say, get the most sort of bang for your buck and squeeze as much as you can in, especially when it comes to, writing the articles and stuff like that. But yeah, sometimes it is a case of quality over quantity. So definitely worth bearing in mind. As you were running the business, was there any software or tools that helped you build it or just maintain it?
Look, not really. It's been the internet's changed a lot in the last 12 plus years. So, the way that I built it at the start has changed to how it is now. So I might not be the best person. It's pretty self-sufficient and technically, but I don't know if there is any really.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah. As you were learning more about display advertising, building content sites, and even the niche, were there any resources that just really helped you skill up or just inspire you? This might be certain communities or YouTube channels or just any great resources.
My experience with display advertising is I started with AdSense, and then once I hit a certain volume, I really noticed the RPM drop off, which was what prompted me to look for other ad partners. And I don't know if I can mention one specific one, but I spent a bit of time searching on Reddit to do a bit of research on header bidding and what that means and rolling your own, which I ended up not doing. I ended up going with an ad partner who was a bit more full service. And I mean, it seems like a field with deep knowledge to like a bit of a barrier to entry to understand all of that, which was a bit of a surprise to me. So yeah, Reddit was good to learn more about that process and what the options are. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of partners that you can choose to go with. And, I tried a couple before finding one that seemed to return the best bang for buck for the way my users use my site.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think Reddit's one of those love-hate tools, really. It's like you can find a needle in a haystack in there, but there are lots of nuggets of, really valuable information. It's kind of how far you're willing to sort of dig deep into it, because like you say, the knowledge depth and base for display advertising is surprisingly deep. And yeah, it's not just like a one-size-fits-all approach. So that makes sense. You've just shared about, what worked for you as you were building the business. Was there anything that you tried that didn't really work, that wasn't really giving you the ROI you were hoping for?
So over the last year, you mentioned that there's a beta version of the site that's included in the sale. So I developed that. I went through the design process and some user experience testing. And that's been a really cool process to drive all of that myself. At the end, it's a harder process than I thought to really provide an experience that was going to work for existing users of the site who might have been using the site for months, if not years, and as well as innovate on that. So I don't know if I've metabolized all of those learnings, but I feel like there's a lot in that for me to get the balance right of keeping what's working and what's not. So that beta site hasn't launched. Some of the functionality of the live site is tied into that in the back end, which has been great because it's a bit easier to work with as a developer in that technology. But it could be an option for a buyer to take it and run with, especially if they've got ideas on other monetization, which I can mention about as well, which don't require as much time on site, since the beta version does speed up the process for the user. But of course, shorter time on site means lower ad revenue. So it was a tricky balance with that one.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to move over to the marketing side of things now. Where does the majority of the traffic come from?
Don't have the percentages in front of me, but I think most of it originates from search engines, Google, and then there's a decent portion of return traffic or direct traffic. There's some referrals as well, which of course helps with the SEO, being just having the backlinks as well as being a source of traffic as well. But majority is Google keyword searches.
Yeah, it sounds like it's quite, as is the way with content sites, it's quite a hands-off form really, because like you say, once you've published the content, you're basically just allowing organic traffic to sort of flow in.
Yeah, because it's more of a tool really, and that's definitely an opportunity as well for a potential buyer that I've considered myself and would pursue, would be to work more on the content side of the site, put a little bit more time into producing articles, because mostly people come back to use the tool. Yeah, so it's an opportunity there, and I think it could also help with SEO for some of the longer tail keyword searches.
For sure, yeah. What's the type of work that you do to maintain the site on a sort of day-to-day or even a weekly basis? Could you just briefly describe what that looks like?
Yeah, a week in the life. So it can be pretty hands-off for many years. Like I've had full-time jobs and part-time jobs in between, sort of working on the site, developing features for it. But there's stretches that I can go without working on it at all. There's a couple of social media channels which could use a little TLC, but they're also avenues for the site users to get in touch if they've got a question about how it works, as well as support email. So I would say less than half a dozen support requests a week to reply to, and most of those are more in terms of the actual trading mechanisms and the finance area. So that can be something for a buyer to be aware of. And they may not need to know a great deal about the niche themselves, but if they don't, then they might need to get someone just on a casual basis to be able to respond to those sorts of support requests, because they often do need a little bit of area knowledge. That's sort of the minimum. And then I've been working on new tools over time, and like just reacting to some of the trading trends that happen to maybe spotlight things. More recently, I've started looking at doing a bit more proactive SEO work, and I guess that can mostly be outsourced to an SEO firm, but I think a lot of potential buyers may have some expertise in that area as well. That's the sort of work that I tend to do.
Yeah, no, that's definitely useful information, especially what you're mentioning about the niche specific thing, knowing about finance. I guess by extension then, because you were saying that the site is more of a tool as opposed to just a pure content site, what skills or requirements would you say are needed for someone who's not familiar with, well, I suppose this business in particular? Like, is there any software development skills required?
I think there's options to choose here. One would be no, that you don't need development skills if you're happy with the tool in its current form. It's been like the trading niche that the site serves has sort of exploded over the last couple of years. It seems to have stabilized at a pretty good level now, which means there are a couple of tools that other people have brought out as well, meaning there's definitely some benefit to continuing to work on the tool itself and keeping on top of what the trading trends are. I think you could also just focus on the content marketing to continue to bring the traffic in, the current traffic that's there. But on the other hand, it could be good to either engage a developer to continue to work on the tool, work on the site, or whether that's someone that you engage, or whether you've got the skills yourself, that the live site is in PHP with just jQuery and JavaScript on the front end. I don't know if you want this sort of detail. And the new beta version of the site is in React.js. So if that helps or not, but like they are common languages if you don't speak tech to be able to find someone to do some work on the site.
For sure, yeah, that definitely makes sense. We've talked a bit about the opportunities so far. I mean, if you did stay with the business, what are some of the ways that you would try to expand the business?
There's more directions to go than I've got time to look at, which is, I guess leads into, circles back as to why I'm looking at passing it on. But my first thought was having a paid membership tier with more advanced tools, live pricing, which isn't really something that works, that you can make the numbers work on providing a free tool, but it is a common request to have more up-to-date pricing, live pricing. There's the possibility of releasing the tool as an app and then having a bit of cross-platform user experience. I think there's a big opportunity for affiliate partnerships with trading platforms. Like, the users are very valuable to a trading platform if you can get them converted. So I'm sure that converts to dollars at the end of the day. But sort of partnership building isn't my strong point, which is why I haven't made any progress in that area. But I know there's a lot of people who are out there to find something with potential and pick it up and then increase the revenue. And I think there's a lot of options there. There's also, like, the site serves one type of niche, like one niche type of trading, but it could pretty easily be expanded into another couple of types, which could definitely be which I'd probably look at as a first option if I end up keeping the site.
For sure, yeah, definitely sounds like there's a number of ways to scale the business, or different avenues for growth there. What would you say are some of the biggest risks with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
Yeah, a lot of them will be self-evident, I think. I mean, I mentioned the primary traffic source is search engines. So we're always, I think most content-driven sites or tool sites, as in my case, we are at the whims of search engine algorithms. So that can always wreak havoc. I've been lucky so far, and I'm just starting to engage an SEO consultant to help kind of bolster some of those things with keeping good SEO ranks for some of the primary search terms that give the bulk of the traffic. But there's some more work to do with some of the what they call longer tail search terms or more specific search terms. It is in a niche, and over the last couple of years there's been some pretty wild action in the trading markets. I don't think it's likely that there's going to be any regulatory reform, but if that did happen, it could cause some issues. And also, I mentioned there's a few other tools that are out there, so working on the defensibility against those. And it kind of comes with the territory. If you're in an area that's having an explosion of interest, has been fortunate enough to have an explosion of interest, of course there's going to be other players that want to have a slice of that pie. And if it's a bigger pie all up, then it's a good thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. I mean, I've just got the last few questions to run by you, Sean, as we wrap up this interview. How much support are you offering buyers?
I'm kind of flexible on that. I think, at the end of the day, as I said, I do have some sleepless nights. So I wake up in a bit of a panic in the morning, and that's like the primary reason for passing it on. I think ideally I'd take myself out of the business after some time, but I do know that it is a niche tool and it's a custom website as opposed to just a simple WordPress or something like that. So, I'm aware of that, and it's not going to be as straightforward for a buyer to potentially pick up and run with. So, yeah, I'm negotiable on that, but happy to give as much support as is required for a reasonable length of time.
Sure. Are you willing to commit to a non-compete?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm ready to move on.
Are you open to negotiating something like an earn-out?
Yeah, I'm also open to that. Yeah, I've got no problem if that's going to help make a deal happen.
Great to hear. Last question from me, really, then. If you put yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why would you say that this is a business worth buying?
I think there's a lot of potential, which I talked about before, the different directions you could take the site, the different ways to add extra, not just like replace the monetization, but add extra monetization to it. There's potential even to get VC, or if it is a VC buyer, to engage a team and build this out to a full-scale business that could go on to very, very well. There's just so many avenues to take it, and it's not going to be right for every buyer. Someone who's maybe a little bit more in the blogger or affiliate sales, as in like an Amazon-style affiliate space. But for someone that this makes sense for, it's kind of a no-brainer.
For sure, yeah. Is there anything you'd like to share that you think I might have missed?
I don't think so. I think we've covered all of the corners. I'm happy to take on more specific questions. I know there's probably a lot to talk about once we look at what the niche is specifically and have a look at the tool itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining me on today's interview. I really hope that your business gets picked up by the right buyer in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want it to go on and continue to serve the users that it's been great for, and I know it'll be good for whoever picks it up as well.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. To learn more and see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 54825. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked the listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.